Question 4 touches on Toyota and how they let their companies, competitors, view their production line, and why other companies have not been as successful at implementing Toyota's production system, even though they can see what they're doing. And the question also continues on why can't you just plug and play best practices from one company to another. And I think to answer that question, we can see it in the reading, right? Toyota has developed their own machine-like intricate structure that is almost impossible to duplicate. They have workers that are really running like machines, very high quality. A company can't just see what they're doing and turn it into their practice overnight. It's really interlocked, as we can see in the system. It's really superior, and it's constantly improving through a variety of structures they implement on their own. They really create a system that's so good that it's near impossible for a competitor, even though they can read it right in front of their face, to implement and try to mimic. A prop that I would use is a cookbook. I'm not sure if everyone has cookbooks these days with the advent of the internet, but if you have a cookbook, when you go to a restaurant, I know often I go and I say, wow, I think I can make this at home, even better than what I can make here, and I never do. And that's because, the restaurant makes it such a high quality through years of practice and superior performance and training that they can make meals better than I can just reading from a cookbook. And I really think that this is sort of a similar comparison to use a prop, that Toyota, even though they show all of their ingredients to making the soup, no one can make it as good as theirs. And in this case, it's the Toyota's production system and the way they stay competitive and produce their automobiles. Chapter 5 discusses barriers to entry. Specifically, the question that's asked is, what industry has a low barrier to entry, and how would a new entrant in this industry best exploit this low barrier? In the reading, we can see this is the personal computer industry that IBM was really teed up to dominate, and through outsourcing and letting other companies, develop their software or manufacturing parts, really opened the floodgate to the personal computer market that we see today, as we can see in the reading. I mean, if you go to a Best Buy or a Walmart, there's got to be at least a dozen companies there, with their own personal computer or laptop, dominating for your dollar. Which laptop will you buy, and which has, drove the price down, drove quality, you'd like to think higher. And it's really about dominating the market and exploiting the low barrier during the kind of beginning parts of that industry. One of the things that came to mind on my end of how hard it is to get into this dominating aspect once the industry is opened up already is, I like to think of car manufacturers came to mind. If you think like Ford, GMC, Chrysler, big, massive automobile companies, been around for decades and decades and decades. Our grandparents had them. Besides Tesla being an electric car, it'd be very, very hard to bring a new automobile company to market from scratch, right? And it's kind of in here as well. It's really about being first there, dominating yourself in the market, and controlling that market while it's young. As it gets more mature and grows, it's very hard to grab, a significant piece of that pie and be a major player. Question 6 from Chapter 6 really focuses on the role of the government in regulating and overseeing the way firms pursue diversification strategies. And do I believe the level of regulation of corporate level strategies is too much, too little, or about right? The first part of that question, the role of government has changed throughout time. We can see in the reading this has really changed in the 1950s when most companies are really focusing on kind of a single business, of what they were doing forever. And in the 1960s, we can see that through different changes and different regulatory pieces, companies started to diversify what they do. They do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Sort of, I kind of think of it, kind of I was reading it like a portfolio, maybe an investment portfolio. For a personal, brokerage account, maybe, like a little stock, little bonds, a little in the S&P 500, a little in like international indexes, stuff like that. Try to, kind of spread the risk, which is, I think, a smart move for companies. And some companies still have that. One of the things that came to mind on my end is Walmart. You can literally get your tires changed, pick up a prescription, buy a tree at Home and Garden part of the store, pick up a box of cereal and buy, a pair of shoes. I think, Walmart's obviously not the only person that does this. That's more from a retail end, but there are companies that produce, several things. So I think diversification, is a good thing. Should I think government's role in it be larger or smaller? I think the government should definitely make sure that companies aren't becoming monopolies and completely controlling an entire market through buying out competitors and maybe some nefarious means. There definitely has to be some protection, but I think that companies should really be allowed to, diversify as they see fit, as long as it's not, detrimental or harmful to the overall good.